Well, I was diagnosed with systemic lupus about 30 years ago. So I've definitely had problems with flares over the years. As a result of the medication they gave me for lupus, I actually had a total hip replacement at the age of 57 because the medication actually destroyed my hip.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah. And I've had kind of a mild intermittent asthma, never anything that bothered me until I had COVID. I've
Mm,
actually had COVID 4 times.
mm.
Um, the second time was probably the worst, and I basically developed cognitive dysfunction. I started having neurological issues. My asthma went from mild intermittent to severe.
Mm.
Um, I I started having problems walking. I had such extreme fatigue. I would sleep off and on or just nap off and on all day, just trying to get some kind of sleep because at night I was not sleeping at all. Um, I developed pericarditis as a result of lupus. I'm sorry, as a result of COVID, and
Right,
that's actually inflammation of the lining around your heart.
right.
So that's what caused part of my sleep issues because when I would lay down flat, I would have excruciating chest pain
Mm.
and difficulty breathing because of the severe asthma.
So you
Um,
said you had widespread pain and inflammation just all over?
Absolutely, my all of my joints were inflamed. I had muscle weakness. I actually had inflammation in my muscles too. I mean, I was a mess. I was just a mess.
And you got to the point where you were not able to drive?
Yes. So I used to be a pharmaceutical rep for 18 years. And, my job was driving to hospitals all over Kansas and Missouri. And once I got that second case of COVID, I ended up having such severe cognitive dysfunction that I couldn't navigate through traffic. If I didn't have a GPS on, I would totally lose track of where I was going. I and that cognitive dysfunction actually worsened
Mm.
as I got into sort of the long COVID phase. I
Wow.
um, I got to where my peripheral vision was almost non-existent. I couldn't see behind me. I couldn't see to the side to be able to drive, and I had chronic migraines. My longest lasting migraine lasted probably 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Um, so I would have nonstop migraines eventually um,
And
after
so
seeing, oh,
at some point you took medical leave?
I did. I was forced to go on medical leave by our company
Wow.
because I I had driving difficulty. And of course, I couldn't even carry on a conversation. I mean, I wouldn't even talk to friends on the phone. I did everything by text. For one thing, it was difficult to speak because I was using a nebulizer like 6 times a day to just keep my lungs clear enough to survive
Right.
and or at least to feel like that was helping me survive. Um, I
So
you know it's
not to interrupt, but how did you find the patches and how long ago did you find the patches?
So I actually found the patches about 9.5 months ago, and I found them through Lisa Rillo. It was I had been watching some Facebook posts of hers for a couple months, and you know, being ex pharmaceutical, I was very skeptical because I thought, okay, if this really helped activate stem cells, then a pharmaceutical company would grab this up. And so I was skeptical, but I really needed hope. I was seeing 7 different specialists. No one had an answer for me until I finally got to a COVID expert who told me that I actually had developed microvascular clots in my brain and in my lungs.
Wow.
So here I was being treated for severe asthma, but it wasn't my asthma. I had blood clots in my lungs and I just couldn't catch a deep breath.
Wow.
Um, and then, of course, causing migraines and everything.
All right.
But
So what happened once you finally decided, all right, I'm gonna give this a try, even though I don't believe it's gonna work?
well, um, I received the package. I ended up buying a gold package because Lisa had recommended to, get Eon and X39. So when it arrived, it actually sat on my kitchen counter for about 3 days because I was still very skeptical. Um, and I woke up one morning with a migraine. I could feel the migraine coming on. And I looked over at that package on my counter and I thought, okay, today's a good day as any. So um, I took it out. I actually put both X39 and Eon on my neck since my headache was starting. And within 5 minutes, I could feel this tingling up my spine. And I thought, oh, this is weird. This is doing something. I had a friend visiting from out of town who was sitting there having coffee with me, and she was witnessing this whole thing. And within 15 minutes, my migraine was totally gone. No signs of migraine whatsoever.
Wow.
So
What happened that night?
that night I slept better than I had since 2019.
Awesome.
I It was unbelievable. I mean, my husband couldn't believe it.
Wow. And then after about a month, what did you notice then?
So after about a month, I noticed that um, all of my inflammation was gone. The inflammation that I had in my knees, I had been to the rheumatologist right before that, and she said that I had that my tender and swollen joint count was 8.
Mm,
Um, that went down to 0.
wow.
Um, my my hip that didn't get replaced aches often before the patches. Suddenly I noticed one morning that, I'm waking up and my hip is not hurting. So that was probably those were kind of the early things that I saw.
Right. So 4 or 5 months, you're back to walking?
Yes, 4 or 5 months I was back to walking 3 to 5 miles a day, and
Yay.
that was unbelievable considering a year prior to that I couldn't walk my dog. I could barely go outside because any temperature change would cause a terrible coughing fit. My lungs were just not functioning well. My brain wasn't functioning well.
When did you feel like your lungs really started to clear up?
Around, I want to say around month 3 or 4, I could feel a difference. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that when I lay down at night, that I could still kind of take a breath, that I wasn't struggling to breathe. But really, by month 5 or 6, there was a dramatic difference.
Wow. You said about 7 months, you felt like most all the neurological issues were gone.
Yes.
Yep. And then later, even 8 months, 9 months, nerve damage in your leg you felt was finally beginning to heal. So that took a while, 8 months.
Well, the thing that's interesting is I had some surgical damage. I've got about an 8-inch area on my leg that has been damaged since surgery. I actually spent a year in physical therapy after surgery because that nerve damage had really messed with my ability to heal correctly.
Right.
Um, they told me then that there's a slim possibility that it would heal. And I can actually feel nerves connecting. I can actually feel changes in that leg. Um, 4 months ago, if someone would have poked me on the leg right there, I wouldn't have been able to feel it.
Wow.
No heat or cold sensation. Now it's all coming back.